Hey, yo, and welcome to the AWO Journeyman podcast, a podcast where Maso is away on baby leave, and we are welcoming a new member to the AWO family. We'll get to that in a second, but joining me as usual is Nate. Oh, actually, first of all, I'm JD, the Blues fan who's going to be distracted 50-50 this entire podcast. Joining me as usual is Nate, the Pies fan, who I'm sure is not regretting his choice leaving directly after Pendlebury got his broke the disposal count, and I can vouch for that. That was hilarious. And joining us is our good boy. He's a good boy. He's an Essendon boy. We've
Essendon fan.
We've dubbed him Jabs. My good mate Connor. How you doing, Connor?
I'm good, thank you very much. Nickname comes from my staunch defense of the Essendon 34, and I will get into that at a later stage on one of the other podcasts.
That's an off-season one if I've ever heard of it, because there's no way you're doing that mid-season.
It's too much to unpack.
Way too much. But boys, let's talk some footy.
So we're going to start off with Thursday night footy, and I still think this is the best game of the round. Richmond v Sydney, two bottom six sides, but it did not feel like that at all. Richmond 12-16-88 to Sydney's 11-9-75. I was only there to see Buddy Franklin one last time at the MCG. His last kick was a Harry Mackay impression. Just a snapshot, just went nowhere.
God.
A great comeback by Richmond. They were down for 3.5 quarters. They got themselves in front by a point. They didn't get a goal to get in front, but it felt very scrappy towards the end. But that's Richmond for you. They just love wet weather footy. As opposed to Sydney, once it gets a little bit dirty, they just fold like a wet paper bag. Yeah. Jack Graham with a match-winning goal with about, a minute to go, and Dusty Martin putting the icing on the cake at the end. Richmond, their season's alive, and Sydney.
There was shades of old Dusty on Thursday night that we've missed out on most of this year.
Winding back the clock.
Oh, I love the cliches. He was a very influential on Thursday night footy. He did it really was winding back the clock. He was absolutely everywhere. Went in the mid a bit, kicked a few goals. That last goal though, genuinely, it was blink and you miss it, because they scored the Jack Graham goal. Then all of a sudden it was, oh shit, Dusty's got another. But so they really did seal that one nicely. Swans, pretty much. Are we willing to call it curtains for the Swans?
No.
I'm ready to call it curtains for the Swans based on the grand final fact. Any team that loses gets belted in the grand final does not make the 8 in the next year.
I mean, they're well and truly on the train. We didn't think we backed them in at the start of the year to be a team that breaks this hoodoo, and we have been absolutely proven wrong with that prediction.
Yeah, I was the same. At the start of the season, I was like, Sydney surely can't drop down. Like they're a young team. They've got all firing on the right cylinders. They've got players coming in to replace the older blokes in the next few seasons, and it's just sort of fallen apart a bit. But John Longmire's good enough to coach them out of that. So.
How was Thursday night footy, by the way? How was the crowd? It must have been a bit of a weird night.
I always loved sitting top or level 4 behind the goals.
Yep.
I was there to see Jamie Elliott kick the match-winning goal from that angle. Sorry to bring that up, but it's just a very good angle to sit at.
It is. You're not wrong.
But sitting near Richmond fans, though, can be really fucking annoying. Some of the nutty comments they make. One comment I heard was Richmond can go deep in September if the umpires don't fuck us over. I don't get it.
A team historically the last 5 to 6 years who have been absolutely adored by the umpires.
The persecution complex Richmond fans have got is astounding.
Oh, it's amazing. You know what's even worse? We're only a Richmond fan short. We've got the big 4 sitting here. Oh, that's disgusting.
Everywhere.
Oh, jeez. I'm surprised we haven't had an argument already. Sitting there going, who has more fan base? Who gets more people into the G?
Who does it more? Really?
It's proven it's Collingwood.
Oi!
As much as I hate it, it's proven it's Collingwood.
It's true. It's the away factor for Collingwood has been the big talking point this season. I don't think we went into that enough last week. That's been massive talking point this season for your club.
Hey, 3-game memberships to Gold Coast games. That's how they got in last week.
Which I think that's a nice transition into Friday night football. Unless you guys have anything else to say about Thursday night, I think it was just a really solid win by Richmond that just pushes them further into the 8.
Thoughts and prayers go out to Jacob Bauer. First game, did his hamstring the first 5 minutes. What a ball.
Oh, what a boy.
Thoughts and prayers go out to Toby Nankervis, who's going to have an extended holiday.
That hit was brutal.
It was.
Because Lloyd, and as usual, I bring up the Supercoach madness. The Supercoach fans were not happy with Jake Lloyd being taken out nice and early. So you end up with like a 39. But yes.
Jack Riewoldt going past Kevin Bartlett, all-time Richmond goals as well, 779. Don't think he gets to 800, but we'll see. 7 more games to go.
Jack Riewoldt has also handballed it more than Kevin Bartlett ever did, so he gets that credit too.
I think I've handballed more than Kevin Bartlett.
Exactly, everyone has.
Yeah, they were. It's funny though because they had Lloydie sort of announcing that he had gone past Kevin Bartlett and not Lloydie, Richo. Announcing that he had gone past him, and he sounded that little bit nervous, just a little bit, because it's not impossible for him to get past him. A couple of, if he has do they play West Coast again by any chance?
They play next week.
There you go. There's potentially a 10-goal haul for Jack Riewoldt. So something like that would make it a little bit interesting, but it will be pretty hard for him to get.
Just one more thing. Sorry, just one more thing on Sydney. If they lose next week to the Dogs, then I'll write them off.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, yeah, you just can't write any of these teams off in the vortex at the moment because it's just still you beat you, you beat you, you beat you, and it just keeps shuffling things around. Like there's a game currently going on that's looking like things going to shuffle things around. Speaking of shuffling a team down into the vortex, we'll move on to Friday night football where you and I both attended, Nathan, where 11-11-77 played 13-11-89, Collingwood by 12 points. A game that, even to know it was only 12 points, never really felt like the Dogs were going to get themselves over the line, even when they were coming quick in the last. But, Nate, what drives a man to leave this game?
When we're down by 15 goals, or when Scott Pendlebury breaks the all-time disposal record. 2.5 quarters to do it, and I just headed off. But
what a boy!
But Collingwood, from November 11th to July 7th, they've broken the Treloar curse.
Yes,
it was only 2 games, but I'd mentioned the John during the game. Not once throughout 2.5 years did the Pies have a lead over the Dogs, and it felt like that in the first half of this game against the Dogs. However, got the lead in the second half and just ran away with it.
I think it was six goals straight, then a Dogs goal, then another 4 goals straight, and then another Dogs goal. So it was basically 10 in a row. I shouldn't say basically 10 in a row, but it was basically 10 goals on the trot that really killed the Dogs there. They just got sort of, it's amazing, as I sort of said, seeing you guys live. You just open the field up like no other team, especially sitting on level 4. But for Shannon's sake, I've got a bone to pick here for him. So of course I went with him, and he's a member of the Dogs. The Dogs members got absolutely shafted for Collingwood fans on Friday night. So we got sent to he's got a general admission membership, but general admission membership still should get you into pretty good spots. Like you pay a pretty decent price. We got shoved up to level 4, only allowed to go seats rows 11 up, and
that's only
and we were on the wing side, and it was only 4 sections. And the Collingwood fans, they were allowed behind the goals. There was their GA admission. So even to know it was a Dogs home game, They got absolutely shafted, and the lady who was basically Shannon's like, "What? Where do I have to sit? Are you serious?" And this lady's like, "Next time, pay for an upgraded membership."
Oh,
And oh, mate, I wanted to. He was losing. He was about to lose his shit. I was like, "Just keep walking, mate." I was like, "Just keep walking."
You don't need to knock a woman out.
But the audacity to say that he should have upgraded his membership to a reserve seat is absolute bullshit and lunacy.
Reserve seat memberships are fucking pricey. They always have been.
Exactly, and I think he said it was an extra $70-something or $50 to $70 to upgrade the seat as well. So I know it was a big time game for Collingwood. I know we're saying that Collingwood fans are packing out games, but you can't be doing that to home teams, especially the little clubs in Melbourne. Like, he says this is exactly what happens every time we play the big clubs, is we just get absolutely shafted for other teams. And
that's something you notice as a fan. Like, we're all Essendon, Carlton, Collingwood fans. We all notice it, though. I'm pretty sure as well. You'll go to a game against Bulldogs or St Kilda, and you'll notice like our fans are actually pretty loud in here tonight, which is weird for their home game, but it's every single fucking time.
Yeah, and it's not like the Dogs fans don't turn up either. Like, they are a fan base that does turn up rain or shine. Like, they aren't fair weather fans either, and haven't been for a long time. So, yeah, very interesting seating. Just very interesting to go through that with Shannon. And I said to him I was going to bring it up because to me it's absolute bullshit to do that to members, to paying members. So
you look like they should, like AFL first and foremost should be looking after members of home teams and home games. It's just
don't worry.
That's what I thought they were supposed to do.
Don't worry. From rows A to 11, that was all AFL members.
Now, Pies fans and Dogs fans come together and say, fuck them.
Yeah.
It was absolute lunacy to just be involved in. So that was a little bit of a sour note on the game. But, yeah, I think the Dogs still surprise themselves. I think they've got a lot of positives. Like, in terms of their forward line was very efficient on Friday night. They had, Norton kick 4, Waitman kick 4, and realistically, Jamara could have kicked, it felt like 10. His hands were so solid. He is proving why, like, I've seen this comment made a few times over the weekend that he is proving why he's the number one pick. And I can tell you what, he really did show it on Friday night.
He looks the real deal.
It's not just his marking, it's his leading patterns as well. He's a genuine forward now.
Interesting stat I found from this game is the Dogs lost with plus 17 contested possessions. Like, contested possessions, it's very, very rare to lose the game if you are winning in that stat. So to have plus 17 and not being able to put it on the board, that says to me that they weren't able to find players in space outside of the contest. That probably means that they've got to work on finding a better spread around the ball at stoppages and that sort of stuff. So. They
also realistically let Jamie Elliott off the leash, and Ash Johnson was prolific as well in this game. But the Dacos boys just did what they've been doing all year. But to be fair, I don't know if you felt like this during the game, but Caleb Daniel, what a performance! Like, watching it live, he felt like he was everywhere. It was insane to watching the little man go, and then he manned up on Cox for an entire 2 minutes. I was pissing myself watching that.
They only did it for the memes. That's
you have to.
Why wouldn't you?
But yeah,
Cox should be giving that guy a piggyback.
Oh, mate, he's just pissing himself when Daniel's manning him. And then, Daniel's decked a couple ruckmans as well before. So he was just hoping that Cox was going to get it and he had his opportunity to throw him to the ground.
Yeah, 100%.
Oh, he was absolutely. I mean, but yeah, there was a few prolific performances from the Dogs, but I just don't think they did enough in terms of probably their midfield just getting the job done in terms of extra scores. Like, that's where they've been strong this year, and the Dogs midfield just wasn't scoring on Friday night. To me, it's just Collingwood doing Collingwood things now. Now I'm going to replace Melbourne doing Melbourne things with Collingwood doing Collingwood things.
But I think the Dogs played in a way where they have exposed Collingwood a bit. They just didn't execute. Like, they will rue their set shots in that second quarter. They could have been up by 5 or 6 goals, would have put Collingwood's heads a bit down, and that's a big difference as opposed to 5 points. Let Collingwood get themselves back in the game, and
sorry to bring up Essendon, but that's what I really liked about the Anzac Day game. We really exposed some of Collingwood's weaknesses throughout that game, and just seeing other teams be able to do it since means that I'd hope that someone's able to beat Collingwood again before the end of the fucking year now.
Yeah, no, it's going to happen.
Ooh. I know which game I want it to be.
So I know which game I need it to be.
Yeah, becoming a few. So, Nate, what was your assessment of this game? I mean, Pendlebury breaking the all-time disposal record. That had to feel good watching.
Now, heads up, boys. He's 22 tackles away from breaking the all-time tackles record.
Wow!
That's a good one. I rate that.
You know damn well I'm going to shuffle that one. And once he lays that tackle, I'm out.
Please do. Oh, yeah. Did you join in the standing O like the rest of us?
I stood up, gave a standing ovation, and I fucked off.
I just left. I wonder what everyone was thinking when you were leaving.
It wasn't this is right. I need to defend myself here. So me and my mate went Thursday night and Friday night. I paid for Thursday night. He paid for Friday night. So I didn't pay for anything Friday night. So we're allowed to leave. I don't want to be judged. I don't want to be arrowed. I don't want this to be my legacy. I'm allowed to show up to games and walk out whenever I feel like it.
That's fair.
I felt like a Carlton supporter.
But I mean, it was still beautiful to watch. Even I enjoyed watching it, and the standing ovation was very nice for him to receive. And of course, when it came up on the big screen, everyone going up again. See, that's one thing you probably missed that. I'm assuming.
No, I saw that as I was
okay.
But I will make one big prediction, which will probably happen in about 10 years' time. Bontempelli will surpass Pendlebury for the all-time disposal record. I reckon he can do it.
They were saying that
there's a few accumulators at the Dogs, though. Someone might get in his way.
McRae.
Oh, McRae's just... McRae is still the most underrated player for mine, but that's a whole different story. But yep, so Collingwood just moving on once again, just cementing themselves at the top of the table. Realistically, I still think it's going to be one of the harder things to do in September is going to be to beat you. I think you've finally proved... Oh.
You're waffling.
Amazing. I'm trying to find a good... You know what I'm trying to find? A good transition.
Speaking of teams at the top of the table, Brisbane.
There you go. Thank you. Something like that. 16-20, 116, played 5-5-35. Brisbane Lions by 81 points, letting us down and not breaking the all-time record for score, but still a solid performance from the Brisbane Lions. What do you...
9-17 after quarter time, though.
I mean, bad kicking is bad footy.
No, that's something Brisbane's just had as an issue for the last few years. I watched a lot of their footy over the last few years, and some of their shots for goal, I just can't work out why they'd go that avenue, especially with they've got plenty of good players who kick goals. I don't know what a player's not spending time doing goal kicking at training, or is it just in different situations, different pressure situations they can't handle? Because it's not the only team that has the issue, but Brisbane seems to be the one it's the most glaringly obvious they have a kicking for goal issue. I'm still going to argue that Port has a worse one this season, and that's purely off the fact that they've just basically they're on the lower. I believe they're in the bottom 6 now for shots on goal this season, and it's just that's to me is what's going to kill them in a final, because they've let we had discussed this plenty of time, Connor, where the Essendon game where you guys played them the first time. In Adelaide,
yeah, the first time. Realistically, they kept you in it just purely from their shit kicking.
That last quarter and a bit, was essentially just Port Adelaide. Probably last second half, Port Adelaide just kicked probably about 15 to 20 points, and it was absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
Essentially, after that though, it was more just they kicked about 10 to 15 points in that second half, and we just couldn't get it out of our defensive half. It was just constant back and forth football. Port Adelaide send it in, we'd send it back out from a kick in, and just kept coming back in. Port Adelaide are a great football team at the moment. They just need, if they work on that though, they're the only team that can stop the Pies right now.
Yeah, and that's where I'm saying that it's gonna. And realistically, you're not wrong. It's gonna hurt. If they continue this trend as well, it's gonna hurt Brisbane. So realistically, the two teams that are threatening Collingwood at the top do have an issue when it comes to their accuracy on goal this season. Both of them have managed to kick a lot of behinds this year, so it's going to be tough going when it comes to September for both those clubs. I do think West Coast are bringing a little bit more effort now that ever since they basically got buried by Sydney up in at the SCG. But still, to let Jack Gunston kick 6 goals, that's one of the funniest things I think I've seen in a very long time.
Hawks fans were happy about that.
How do you feel seeing Joey? You must be like, this is just typical Joey Danaher, somehow managing to kick no goals in a game against West Coast, kicked only 2 behinds.
What about the week before? Was it last week or the week before, though? He kicked 5.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
That's
Joey
just,
Danaher.
That's just Joe Danaher. It always has been.
Just a weird cat when it comes to the way he goes about it. But
yeah, 100%.
Hipwood, another one. His accuracy's been a bit off lately. 2 goals, 3 this game. So
if it helps, me and my brother were at an Essendon Brisbane game a few years ago, and we heard Hipwood get called Rafa Nadal. It's stuck. My brother know him as Nadal now.
It's
great.
He's a bit of a. I mean, the slippery eel is an interesting player to go into. He could be anything, but I still think is just on the cusp of it. Like, I feel like he's almost taking too much after Joey Danaher. If
there's one forward you don't want to base your craft off, it's Joe Danaher. Joe Danaher has all the skills in the world, but the football brain of a peanut.
But yeah, does anyone else have any thoughts about this game or?
The Eagles waffle side had a draw.
Yeah, they got points.
Hey! it's you know what? That's good to see. And I believe they got through this game injury free.
Jaden Hunt, 27 touches, 1 goal, 96% disposal efficiency.
There you go. I mean, as you might have heard on the podcast a few times, Connor, we've said that he's done the smartest move, that man, in going to West Coast and extending his career by 4 years.
Yeah, he wasn't getting 4 years at Melbourne, that's for sure.
But moving on to the game up at Giants Stadium, we had the Giants taking on Hawthorn. That game was 12-13-85, played 10-12-72, GWS by 13 points. Hawthorn are yet to win at Giants Stadium.
I didn't know that. Jeez.
No, it's been the stat going around at the moment. So they have never won a game, and that includes the games in the hub in 2020.
Yep.
Have never won a game at Giants Stadium. Have basically, I think it's now at 0-7 record there. They just can't seem to get themselves over the line against the Giants, but they had plenty of occasions in this game to win it. And to basically get on top of it. But I do think that the Giants just were flexing their muscle a little bit at times and just putting the hand on the chest and just getting away from Hawthorn.
Giants are in a weird position at the moment, it feels, because they're like, obviously they're right in the middle of the vortex, but their best footy can beat anyone by the looks of it. And then their worst footy will have them in the bottom 4. I'd say that's the glaring thing they need to work on.
I argue that's a lot of teams though this season. That's what it feels like. Is someone's going to have to end up in the bottom 4. It's just who's going to end up that 4th team in there. Like, it could be Swans, it could be Carlton, it could be Hawthorn. I mean, Hawthorn already in there. Sorry, it could be Giants. And it could be Gold Coast. It could even be Freo if they keep going at the rate they're going at. But this was just another performance where the headache was... It's funny. I think the headache is slowly dissipating a little bit, the Hawthorn headache, but it is still well and truly prevalent. They gave the Giants a massive scare on Saturday afternoon. I just don't think they were ready for this sort of... I don't think anyone... I think everyone goes into the Hawthorn game thinking, you know what, we got this. They're a bottom 3 side. They haven't, but if you come up against them on the right week, like Brisbane did, for example, and I know that was coming off the bye, but I still think realistically they're the team that's going to push and push and push from the bottom, and they're doing it so well in my books. I think Sam Mitchell should absolutely hold his head high. He's pushing this, getting the most out of this team.
Push them boys. Push them boys. Push them boys.
It's just a team of boys.
I fucking hate Sam Mitchell being an Essendon fan. Don't get me wrong, but the backdrop's perfect for this. But essentially, like I can't dispute the guy's coaching. He's made Hawthorn look completely better as to where they were. And he has answers for things when they're struggling. So he like when he has to shift around the magnets, when he has to tell them go from plan A to plan B, he knows when to execute that. And I really respect that from a coach, knowing when something's not working and being willing to change it. A lot of them don't do that.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's become probably one of the more tactical coaches to watch that you actually want to. He just makes good moves and makes the game. He tries to turn the game for his club, and that's all you can really ask from a coach like that. But I think there's also something to be said about Adam Kingsley. He's taken this team and just absolutely gotten the best out of them. I think, like we've mentioned, the top end talent was, realistically the weak part of their game. Now we're seeing players like Stephen Caniglio get back to best that we didn't even think was possible. So I've seen there was a post that went around on the AFL page on Instagram that was saying, can the Giants make finals? And in my books, yes. I think that they've every chance, like anyone else, to sneak into that 8th position. And I think some of the footy they're playing could get them there.
The teams that I reckon are more likely to fall out of the 8 right now are Essendon, St. Kilda, and the Dogs, and that could be replaced by Adelaide, GWS, and Richmond off the top of my head, I'd say. 9, 10, 11 are banging on the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say no to the Giants. I think their round 2 loss against the Eagles is going to cost them dearly come the end of the season. They've got a decent draw to get more upsets and get across the line in the finals. If they can beat Adelaide next week, in Adelaide, then anything's possible. But they also have to play poor Adelaide again at Adelaide Oval.
They also the Giants have a bit of a vibe like Essendon did 2 years ago with Rutten when we made finals. Like their percentage is under 100, but they're still in the finals mix. If your percentage is under 100 and you're going towards the finals, you're probably not going to go far into them. So it's pretty much a club decision at that point, whether it's like, do we want, like, is finals worth it and bailing out, or do we want a better draft pick?
Just for a little bit of context, the only percentage they are close to is St. Kilda's, and that's realistically still going to have to be a 40 to 50 point win to get them above St. Kilda's percentage. So still a lot of work to be done.
Geelong's percentage at 8th is what impresses me.
117, yeah. That's
solid.
I mean, to be fair, the Adelaide Crows also with 116. So it's funny. Percentage is playing a big part, but also points based on these draws as well is going to play a big part because, realistically, a team that could sneak into 8th could be like a Carlton or a Richmond that have just got the draw points.
Yeah.
It's just down to percentage as well. So still a lot to play out. And I think, again, just having the Giants with another win on the weekend just makes the vortex, just continues the vortex being a whole bunch more fun.
Don't worry, the Blues are putting themselves right back into the vortex. 3/4 time, 10 goals up.
Yeah, let's just pump the brakes there. Let's just pump them big time. Speaking of teams that are desperately trying to avoid the vortex, I think you called Melbourne getting sucked into it. I think this week, they just sort of said to St. Kilda, you get right back fucking in there.
Yep.
Because it was 8 goals, 10, 58 to 12, 17, 79. Melbourne by 21 points, firmly shoving St. Kilda back into the vortex.
St. Kilda did have 3 injuries before half-time, though. They had one, so they only had one or two rotations before half-time.
Let me go into this. I mean, I have to discuss this. So Max King goes down in literally the first 15 seconds of the game.
Not
With an
half a ball
innocuous ball to the hand. I think the ball hit his hand and must have jarred up his shoulder and just basically destroyed his shoulder, because he's now done for the season, as announced this morning. So that's a big loss immediately. Then all of a sudden, Seb Ross comes off with a hamstring not even 10 minutes later. So they were 2 down in the first 15 minutes of the game, because that's what I think they called it. And they had already made their sub with King. So to make their sub within the first 2 minutes was insane to watch. Then, and you just had to feel bad for Cordy as well.
Yeah, you did.
A Stephen May knee to the back of the head sent Cordy to the bench with a concussion for the night. And just, it was an absolute brutal night for St Kilda. I don't think you'd really say, unless they lost one more, you can't really say that they could have had a worse night in terms of on the injury front. And losing King again, they're going to have to go back to their early season structure where they would try to find goals from different avenues.
Caminiti, Machito,
Filippo. So
might even think about bringing Max Heath or Tom Campbell in as an extra ruck, because Tom Campbell's an absolute jet at VFL level, and Maxie Heath has been closely understudying him for the last few years, and he just looks like he's jumping from strength to strength after being a mid-season rookie draft pick. So
yeah,
I know a lot about as you know, I know a lot about the Saints.
I was going to say you do. You want to give them a bit of context, so.
I did. I did a TAFE course where I worked closely with St Kilda and their footy team and their VFL team for a good whole season last year. St Kilda have a lot of issues, but they also do a lot of things right. I think a lot of their issues stem from board up, like a lot of clubs like Carlton, for instance. Their board is saying that their board is saying things like, no, it'll come, don't worry, and they don't seem to be willing to change anything, but the people in the footy department, they seem to be like, we know we're doing the right things, but it's not getting the right support.
I mean, it's always interesting to get clubs in a little bit of context on these things. I love it.
Well, I blame Ross Lyon for all this shit.
We always blame Ross Lyon, and he absolutely deserves it.
You can blame Ross Lyon. I'd even say I'd go and blame Lethland, and who was the CEO before that? The other CEO.
The other guy.
I forgot his name.
But yeah, this was a game where St Kilda, I'm going to give St Kilda credit. They fought very hard.
They were always in the game.
Yeah, I had to give them a lot of credit. I think they fought very hard, but this was a game all about Melbourne in terms of, and I think it was more about Melbourne's defensive half. As soon as they lost Max King and Stephen May was able to run amok, he was basically just having fun. He was running around and just taking clunk after clunk. They had a lot of solid performances in the midfield, but I think it's good to see that some of their top end midfielders are finally getting some form back. I think that's what they were sort of been. I don't know. They've been in a bit of a weird slump. I think since Oliver's injury, it's almost like the engine was sort of ripped out of it, and they've all been trying to sort of fill that hole that he's left. Which
I also think that Melbourne benefiting from that Clary-sized hole though, because it's giving time to more time for Brayshaw in the middle, who's been playing majority off halfback flank. Gives Salem more time in the middle, even Viney probably.
Viney's arguably in best form at the moment.
Yeah. And I'd actually, just a quick note on Rowan Marshall. It's very rare to see a ruckman to get 30 touches, 10 marks, 86 disposal efficiency. It's a very solid game from a big man.
Wait, Nate, you're getting challenged on the stats here, bud.
I don't really have any detailed stats in this, but fair credit to Marshall, Steele, Wanganeen, Malira, Sinclair, and Webster as well. Just fantastic games for them. Good leadership.
This time last year, David Rath, who works at the Saints, was telling me and a few other blokes in class that Nas Wanganeen is the best kick in their team, without a doubt. Yeah,
so Melbourne just sort of firmly get themselves that little bit of, just that tiny little bit of breathing room, push themselves a little bit further into the top four, and look at a bit more likely that it is probably like that will be the top four. it looks like Melbourne will be that fourth team. But as we said, anything can change. The Vortex is still knocking on their door.
Melbourne's playing Lions at the G next week, which is Lions' weak spot. So,
Hey, they beat them there last year in the finals. But just one more thing. Just one quick correction. 12-7, not 12-17. Good to see Melbourne finally kick straight.
Oh, did I say 12-17?
Yeah. No, they kicked straight. Point of difference between the D's and the Saints, unfortunately.
Yes, I mean, well, that has been a Melbourne weak point that we've been talking about for weeks as well. Which, speaking of a team that kicked a little bit straighter, and something that we needed, we brought up earlier, was Port Adelaide. So Port Adelaide versus Gold Coast. 16-10, 106, played 11-7, 73. Port by 33 points. Just the Suns, man. We've been trying to will them. We tried to will them into the finals, but they're just these are the games.
Now we're trying to will them out of the bottom four.
These are the games. These are the games that you got to show more and more in. Going down to Port by 33, it's another big loss that just hurts the Suns. Now, it was reported again on Monday that by Caroline Wilson that they reckon Stewie Doo is basically out the door.
Is that David Hardwick's theme song?
Oh, God.
Nobody can stop me, nobody can hold me, nobody control me. I'm coming!
Overtaking his premiership teammate at Port Adelaide.
Do you reckon he's actually going to come out like that?
I mean,
100% he will. He'll do that.
Can we please? Can he please? Oh, you've just made my day, Nate. That was beautiful.
If he ends up coaching Freo, he will, because Freo's social media team is S tier.
I really don't know where this is going to end up. It's already becoming a bit of a messy situation, and with Hardwick in the mix, it just becomes a bit more messy. So, I don't know. I think we're going to be a bit of a watch this space, eh, Nate? Bit of a watch this space.
It was good to see Touk Miller back, but it didn't feel like it in this performance.
You wouldn't have known.
Also, may as well lump these two together. Ben King subbed off with just one kick, and Max King subbed off in the first 20 seconds. Just a disastrous night for the King brothers.
And it was a tactical sub of all things too.
Oh, that was just more a shit performance, to be honest. Ali had 6 intercept marks over him and a shitload of spoils as well. These weren't just bombs inside forward 50. These were just Ben King was not positioned anywhere near the ball, didn't give himself a chance to run at the footy or anything like that. Unless he's mentally gone from the Suns and he may be looking out the door for next season.
He did sign a new contract, didn't he?
I think it's only 2 years.
Okay.
But it could be gettable, that sort of stuff. But that's the sort of performance.
If I'm Essendon, I'm throwing money at Ben King. I'm throwing money at him. Why wouldn't you?
That's a $2 million kick right there.
Brothers subbed out in the same round. 2013, round 23. Nathan and Mitch Brown, 2023. Ben and Max King.
Oh, there you go.
And I think another more recent one would have been round 4, Paddy McCartan with a concussion, and then Tom McCartan had a concussion that same game.
Yeah, that one wasn't, so he couldn't sub out the second one, though.
That's the only problem, double sub. I just had a question with the sub. I was going to say, have we ever had a brother been subbed off for a brother?
I want it now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've just thought about that. I'm going to try and see if I can find it. But what were you going to say, Nate?
This crowd was about 98% Port and about 2% Suns. There was one goal by Bailey Humphrey, kicks that goal. He's trying to pump the crowd up. I don't think he realises, mate, no one's here to fuck cheer you on. Yeah, he's done that. Everyone's looking at him like, what the fuck are you doing? And that third quarter, 9 goals to 1. It's a Port surge. They deserve to be top 2. They're setting themselves up nicely for finals.
Yeah.
I want to give Hinkley an extension, but I don't think Port are ready for a flag this season. But Hinkley is the guy, just a few more years.
Yeah, keep Kenny. Ken's passion. I mean, I don't know if you guys heard how he. I was going to quickly say how he spoke about Charlie Dixon. It was just very passionate guy with how he loves his players.
Oh, you can see that all of his players love him as well. The only people who don't really like Ken Hinkley are Port Adelaide fans.
But even then, like you speak, like I've got a mate who's a Port fan, and I wonder if it's just the loud ones that come through, because realistically, I've a lot of Port fans that I've spoken to, and like my mate, it's just they love Ken. It's just more. I think it's more they want the success finally.
Yeah.
Which is understandable. I mean, it's been a long time, and hopefully Ken does it. I mean, if there's a coach you want to see get a flag, it's just Ken Hinkley. His passion for the game is bar none.
I'm pretty sure we'd all agree that we don't argue our respective coaches, but yeah, opposition, yeah, probably Ken.
I mean, mate, yeah, I'd argue McRae, but Vossi, yeah.
You want to see Collingwood win a flag, John? Are you really a Carlton fan?
I mean, you can't deny what the Pies are doing this year. I'm just saying. But
does that mean you want them to win the flag?
I mean, my Carlton heart would always say no.
Thank you. Speaking of fucking decimating losses again, North Melbourne.
Ah, he did it. I had the transition ready. Good work.
Speaking of dumb kids, North Melbourne.
North Melbourne.
North Melbourne again today. They've come up against Geelong, I think, at GMHBA. Yep.
Goomba.
We call it Goomba Stadium.
19-11, 125 plays 9-9-63. The Cats were up 71-16 at half time. North never really got a look in here. They were second best to the ball in the first half. The
fact you bothered to watch it as well was just.
I watched the first half.
It was a snore fest. It was a snore fest.
Yeah.
Which is becoming a bit of a trend in North Melbourne games. I think Maso has called them a few times the best cure for insomnia. It's just the performance that you expect to see out of them. My thing that I wanted to say, my big thing was when Brian Myers is getting 32 disposals, you know you're a bit of, and when Zach Tui's kicking toros.
You're kicking toros for fun.
Kicking toros for fun. It's just you're just becoming a bit of a laughing stock. And I said weeks ago that North needs a win desperately. Now it's becoming more desperate than ever. They
100%.
Desperately need to fire a shot. It's good.
I thought they were going to beat us.
Yeah.
They had a win, and then some fucker who can't count the 75.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. Oh god, that feels like it was a lifetime ago.
It really does.
That's got to sting.
That's gonna think. I mean, Nate, your mate can attest to it most. I mean, that is got to be the biggest stinger of the year. And actually, you know what? Comment down below, because I tell you what, that's one for the comments. How much of a stinger was the bloke who can't count to 75? Because now, like we're saying, they're desperate for it, and their fans are probably becoming desperate for it as well. It becomes really hard when realistically, Alistair Clarkson comes in, you're promised more, and realistically, you're delivering the same thing again this year.
It doesn't help that Clarko's gone for the majority of the season, so you got to give him that the benefit of the doubt there. But
I will give them that benefit, but they're still using Clarko's game style. They're still using, realistically,
Ratton's not using the game plan he used at the Saints last year. He's using the game plan Clarko has been implementing from the start of the season.
Yeah, so it's just become one of those things where it's like, yeah, they just need to see more. And we brought it up last week. It was a point that the Sunday Footy Show made, but it was basically their leaders are what's costing them this, and it's becoming more evident than ever. Like, Luke McDonald had a good day today, and it was good to see, but it's just becoming too much of the same, where it's the kids that perform and a lot of their lower end talent. They're relying
on Davies Uniacke and Zerha and bloke like. I get that that's the future of their club, but they need players like I think Zeebel's completely done. He's not playing on after this season.
Yeah, there's just so many passengers is probably what the best word to use for it. And it didn't help that today that their defense took their wallets took a little bit of a hit with Moneybags going out. Griffin Logue subbed out of the game with an injury as well. So, that really hurts them as well down back. Although I would argue he probably hasn't fired too much of a shot.
Jai Simpkin going out early is pretty rough on North, though, too. He's one of these, probably their most prolific ball winner in the middle at the moment. So I reckon that hurts. And then when you've got a key forward in Coleman Jones not even getting on the scoreboard, having 9 touches, and Stephenson only having 9 touches when he's supposed to be floating around half back, half forward.
Steve-O!
Yeah. It's just like you can't, like, those are passengers. Those are guys who are struggling, and I don't think they've got the blokes on the list to drop them at the moment. That's why they're still playing.
I think it also hurt losing George Wardlow before the bounce as well.
Is that who the big out was? I didn't check that article. So
they had a few big outs. Goldie was rested. Zeeble was announced as a sub. Phillips dropped. Whipping Boy gone. And I
would argue that Zeri was actually quite good today in terms of how he performed in the ruck and his hit outs. I think that we can see what they were trying to do by bringing him in and trying to bring forward the future.
He did the right thing as a ruckman. He had 19 touches and 15 were handballs. That's a true ruckman.
How much can that be attributed to Blitzarves being subbed off tactically? Was that just all junk time, or?
I mean, then again, I'm not one to really pay attention overly to the ruck contest. I really probably should have if I'm bringing up Tristan Zeri.
John, don't worry. No one's paying attention to a meaningless ruck contest when it's 70 points of difference. Don't worry about it.
Thanks, mate. Yeah. Thanks, mate. Because I really wasn't paying attention to if Zeri got on top late because he probably did, but he was still more than serviceable for them, which is something that they. It's something that they need. They need a life after Goldie, and potentially this is it. But for mine, it was just great to see Zach Tui break the all-time record played for an Irish player. Yep, there we go, the old Irish hat.
Nice.
Breaks the all-time record, beats Jim Steins. What more is there to say about Tui? He was an amazing player at Carlton, came over to Geelong, amazing player at Geelong, won himself a flag. It's like I said to you, I held a little bit of a grudge there for a little bit when he left because, you always do. But then it's just, you sit there and realize, he's just a great bloke. And I was just so happy. I really was. I was so happy to see him get his flag last year. And he's just, hope we get a few more years out of him because he's still, I reckon, hopefully he's still got a few more left in the tank.
300.
Oh, it'd be nice. It'd be nice to see him get to 300. And then, that I still think we'll probably see. You've got a couple of Irish lads that eventually, hopefully, we get to a couple more Irish lads who come all the way through and get it. But drafted as a 20-year-old, so not bad to get to the point that he's at right now. But we'll move on to the Sunday afternoon game, which I won't go into too much because I didn't watch an absolute second of it. But Essendon versus Adelaide, 17-13, 115, played 15-7, 97. Here you go. Oh, Jabby boy, take it away. You can have fun. You can talk about this.
I got plenty of notes, but Adelaide did really well to work themselves into the first quarter after the Bombers broke away really quickly early. We kicked a goal within the first minute of within the first 30 seconds of the game, and we were all over Adelaide early. So they did well to work themselves back into the game in that first quarter. Both teams had insane forward pressure. They're small forwards on both sides, and the forward were absolutely menacing to defenders. And that's even commentators were saying that this game is completely forgotten what defending is all about. Fogarty and Thilthorpe, that's a fucking class key forward duo Crows have got there for the next 10 years. They look class. Both of them float in and out of games, but if Adelaide can get both of them fit and firing, they're going to be something else. They both take good marks. They both kick straight. They're the perfect understudies to Tex, really. Tex for Coleman. He's now outright leader for the Coleman right now. At the end of that game, I'm not sure what's happening. I'm not sure how Charlie's gone today.
Charlie is on 3 goals too.
Okay, Charlie's back in front for the Coleman. Personally, I don't really want to see Tex win the Coleman, but it would be a very
no one does.
Yeah, it would be a very good story.
The old man winning it would be fun.
Yeah. Other notes that I took from Essendon and Adelaide, both teams were struggling with fast ball movement. Whenever both teams switched it on and tried moving it from one end of the ground to the other, they both struggled. They're just trying to defend and trying to set up against it. They couldn't do it. Darcy the Butcher Parish, he needs to work on his disposal efficiency.
The Butcher.
Oh my
who's
God.
to blame?
The last 2 weeks watching him though, he when he's under no pressure, he'll cough it up and turn it over. If he's under pressure, he's more likely to hit a target, and it's still 50-50 at best there.
Has Merritt though with 39 disposals.
Merritt 39, Darcy 39, Nick Martin 2 goals and I think 20 odd. Ben Hobbs at half time, Dermot Brereton was saying that he's the future of Essendon's midfield as a midfield bull. And I entirely agree. The kid's 19, 27 games in now, and he looks absolute class in that midfield. 2 meter Peter is elite, and I love the man. Some of the shit he did today was he just did like a ruck tap to the forward pocket into a small forward who just ran into an open goal. It was just smart footy brain. Interesting stats at half time where we were up 10 in contested possessions, 74 in uncontested possessions. It was just like our spread of our players along our forward 50 defending when they were trying to rebound. It was just choking and stifling Adelaide entirely. They could not do much about it from there. I was still nervous at halftime when it got announced that Adelaide have never come back from a deficit this large. I was still nervous, was not confident. The intensity did drop off entirely though in the second half. Like both teams were not playing as fast and as fluent as they did in the first half. Bombers probably should have won by 4 goals to 8 goals, I'd say, but it was like we took our foot off the gas and Adelaide capitalised that in the last 5-10 minutes and I think kicked the last 3 goals of the game. I do reckon Melbourne should be worried about their place in the top 4 because the vortex is well and truly alive though. And they're asking to be sucked down into it. Heppel rolled back the years too in that second half. He looked class. Full time though, the things that really stood out to me was we were plus 17 contested possessions, plus 89 uncontested possessions, and with that plus 99 disposals. You don't lose games when you're doing shit like that.
Essendon beat Adelaide at their own game.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the talk going into it. Everyone was saying we were going to get smashed on contested ball and disposals. And we clearly worked on that throughout the week of training. And I really respect that. That's a very stark difference to what we have been doing over the last few years.
In Brad Scott, you trust.
Yeah, at this stage, yeah. Like I even said to my dad and my brother, this could be a Brad Scott special, you realise. The king of 5-goal leads at 3/4 time and losing.
Or the king of finishing 8th spot and then challenging for a prelim.
Exactly. We got this, right? Touch wood.
But just touching on Adelaide, you can't trust them away from home. And you can't trust them in the vortex. They get hyped up as a top 4 smoky, or they're going to miss out on finals completely. There's no in-between with Adelaide, especially with this vortex going on. They're probably going to end up, 7th or 8th at best, and they're going to have to win 4 away games in a row to make a grand final or to win a premiership. There's no way they're doing that. Unless they come up against Port Adelaide in week 2 or week 3 of finals. That's no.
Were Adelaide looking to go deep into the finals this year though? I reckon that's already a check above what they expected for this season though. So I reckon they'll take first week, second week's finals exit if they have to. So
I think they're performing well above where they thought they would be this year. I definitely think that. I think a lot of people still had them. Depends how you called it, because a lot of people had them. It's like you said, there's no in between. Like Mason had them in the 8, and we had them finishing, I think, in the bottom 5 potentially.
Yeah.
I had them in the 9 to 12 range, just I think a step below finals. So if they make finals, it's a plus. If they fall just short, but the way they're playing though is it's top 4 worthy. But then of course they fail to
Their best
convert.
is class. The best is amazing.
Yeah. So it's going to be very iffy how they end up this season. They finished 9th. I don't think they'd accept that, but they've set up their list long term anyway for it. And they probably will get a few decent trade-ins as well come season's end. Mason Redmond kicking just a magnificent goal to start the game.
Oh, that
Very
was
good. It was a very good goal against his future side.
Fuck you. I've heard a couple rumors about him going back to Adelaide, but at the same time, he was the first person to come out and say it's not a go home factor. I'm 4 hours from Adelaide and I'm 5 hours from Melbourne. It doesn't really bloody bother me. It's for money if he goes back, and I'll accept that because he was honest about it. One last line on this game: umpires still can't work out the stand rule. They'll tell a player to take 2 meters back, to move 2 meters back, and the player will just stand there. They'll say it a few times, and the ball will get kicked, and they won't pay the 50 meters because the player didn't move 2 meters back. And then they'll pluck one later on in the game where they said, "I told you to stand, and you didn't stand." It's like they've got to be more consistent, or they've either got to be more consistent or more lenient on that stand rule because it's not working right now. With it, the fact that every team has frustrations with the stand rule because every second week a team will have something go against them for it. Means that it needs to either be stamped out the entire rule or it just needs to be more crystal clear about when to pay it. Very frustrating watching that happen a few times.
So I think it cost gave Adelaide 2 goals in that final quarter from that. The one Andrew Phillips, and I think it was off the halfback flank, but Adelaide did get a goal a few minutes later.
That was the one that bothered, because I watched 2 or 3 times early in the game where our players didn't move back 2 meters off the mark, and the umpire was like, "Oh, that's play." I'm like, "Why don't pay 50 there?" And then later on in the game they did. And it was, you got to be, yeah. It's better not to confuse us because otherwise that's what makes fans annoyed.
I'm gonna take over and move us on to the Sunday evening game.
The third largest team in Australia,
where we've just upset, which I guess you call it an upset. I mean, I don't think a lot of people thought we were going to do this, but 6-9-45 plays 14-14-98 Carlton by 53 points out in the West. We're back in it.
Yep, well, truly in the vortex.
Carlton are one game outside of the 8. I saw a joke going around during the week where it's like 10 wins to go, and that's to win the flag. We're in it. I don't know what to make of this team anymore, but that's another win for Lockie. That's Lockie Foggy. Lockie Fogarty. He's basically come back into this side and played a role that has just been beautiful to watch. But I wish I had Mason around because the start of this game was just controlled by the umpires a little bit. I think the first 6 goals of this game were off of some form of umpire free kick. This game was summed up perfectly by the commentators that when Harry Mackay's kicking drop punts, you know you're going to lose.
What did Mackay end up kicking?
3 goals too. So still got to work on the goal kicking woes. I'm not going to go too much into this game. I think it's worth me not even bothering this week. But good win by the Blues. I'm just happy to see us in the vortex.
Your key forwards kicked 6 goals, 4 between them after weeks of copping a lot of flack. That's all you really wanted.
Yep. So
it's a sort of win though that sets you up nicely for a depleted Port Adelaide side. And you can beat them next week.
We do match up well against Port. I think we've been going win for win for a little bit there now. So, yeah, should be a fun game next week. We've got the real test comes for Carlton in the next 2 weeks. They've got Port Adelaide and then say the next 2 weeks. Sorry,
I was going to correct you on that.
I forget. There's a bye in between. Sorry. So yeah, we play Port next week. At Marvel, though, that's a bit of a worry considering their record at Marvel. Then we play the Eagles. So, as we said, the bye. But then we have the biggest test of the year, which, Carlton fans had their hearts ripped out by Collingwood before. So, could it happen once again? We'll see. But yeah, just think that, so big couple of weeks for the Blues. 3 on the trot, back in it somehow.
I can't trust Fremantle anymore.
100%.
They lose this game and watch them beat Collingwood next week at the MCG.
They beat us 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. They can beat Melbourne at the MCG, but they can't beat North Melbourne at home. That's free. And they can probably lose to West Coast later this season. I don't know with Freo.
If they do lose to West Coast later this season, that'll be West Coast Premiership, and they won't even care that they finished bottom.
But I think it's a good trend. It's a good passing of the torch. I'm ready to say it. Fremantle only exists now to fuck up people's footy tips.
You can pass the buck finally.
Yeah.
That's nice. I'll take that. Nice that it's finally passed on to someone.
But, it was a day where Sean Darcy got 58 hit-outs and they lost by 53 points.
Oof.
How, you realistically went up against a team with no genuine ruck. It realistically should have been bread and butter for them in the midfield. But Mason had said to me plenty of times that our midfield is going to bully them. We did. It's exactly what happened. The boys showed up the men. Chera just looking like an absolute gem at Carlton. I know that's probably going to hurt Freo fans, but, the last few seasons, some of the players we've got off of them, they're just the ones that are looking like they're going to help us through. They're basically helping us through this period at the moment. Like, Akers has been very serviceable this year, and same with Chera. So, yeah, I think it's probably a bit hard to watch for Freo fans. Blackers. I don't have too much more to say about Carlton versus Freo. Like you said, I think it's just Freo sort of exists to fuck up footy tips and really need to. They're going to need to hit. They need to hit the trade table in the off season and see what they can get for some players and see what they can bring into the club. I reckon they need some bigger bodies in through the midfield. Definitely need a key forward, and that's going to help him. Especially, he's going to help him, Amos, because he's just been absolutely phenomenal. I think that kid is going to be the future of their forward line, but he needs help down there, and that's the problem with them at the moment.
If I'm Freo, I'm thinking of throwing a bunch of money at Logan McDonald. Logan McDonald's probably a good one, though, just because he's a Perth boy. As being the understudy to Buddy for a few years, not being picked in that grand final last year above an unfit Sam Reid, I'd be tempted to leave too if I was him.
See what you can push around, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But Nate, you want to move on and we'll get into some segments.
There's always Joannison for him. I'll get to the Now, I'm not angry, so I'm not throwing an arrow currently, but I'm going to throw a future arrow at Cooper Gretsch. At Cooper Gretsch. Now, if that little fucker does not select Christian Petrarca in his team of the week, he's copping it from me. I may get myself finally blocked from him. You cannot leave. I'm not blocked, luckily.
I am.
Yes. Petrarca, 20 disposals, 4 goals. If he doesn't name him on that half-forward flank, if he names him as an emergency on the bench, as a sub, whatever, he's a flog. Fuck him. He's getting arrowed. You'll get arrowed either way.
Cooper.
Let's go break some hearts!
All right, so I am going for a boy that played on Friday night. I'm going for a boy that was taken in the mid-season draft. This is my second mid-season draft nominee. I think you'll enjoy this one, Nate, but it is Caleb Poulter.
He plays for Collingwood. Oh, wait, sorry, he plays for the Dogs. I don't know which way he was kicking.
Oh, mate, to be fair, I leaned over to Shannon and said, he's so lucky he did that in the first, 10 minutes of the game, and everyone's going to mostly forget about it.
I will never forget this moment.
So if you didn't see it, Connor, he ran the other way for like a solid 20 to 30 meters.
Fuck.
And I was sitting there going, he's forgotten which team he's playing for, genuinely.
Oh, God.
So,
Poor bastard.
poor bastard. But we'll go into Caleb Poulter. He was a draft number 30 in the 2020 National Draft. He made his debut for Collingwood in round 7, 2021 versus the Gold Coast at the MCG. He was he delisted at the end of last year? Yeah,
Delisted end of last year, yep.
Yep, so delisted by Collingwood at the end of the 2022 season, so only played 12 games for the Pies in total, and kicked, I believe it was only one goal. Two goals, sorry. And has now moved over, basically got picked up by the Dogs in the mid-season draft. I wonder, does it have that written down? It doesn't actually have what pick was he in the mid-season draft? Anyone have that? I can't find it.
Oh, he was pretty much a Dogs pick, pretty much from their VFL side.
That's the one thing I can't find is what pick he was.
No,
Pick 10. Pick 10. Pick 10 the mid-season draft, and has now played 3 games for the Western Bulldogs. 2 games for the Western Bulldogs. Has kicked 2 goals for them. And Caleb Poulter, welcome to the Boys Club.
You remember this, pal? You're a boy in a man's world.
Drafted as a father-son pick at the Pies with pick 43 in the 2002 draft, which included Brendan Goddard, Daniel Wells, and Jared Brennan at the top 3. There's lots of candidates in this draft for the Hall of Fame, boys. You need to go through this draft. A lot of players disappeared. Debuting in 2004 against Essendon as a key forward, pinch-hitting ruckman, Cameron Cloke was mainly left to develop at Williamstown in his first season until shoulder injuries sadly called curtains on his Collingwood career. He was picked by Carlton with pick 9 in the 2006 pre-season draft. He moved to Princes Park and thrived in a second ruck role during Carlton's successful 2007 NAB Cup campaign. Again, his season's end came premature with another shoulder injury. Upon returning in 2008, he often played as the Blues' first ruckman and flooding forward to provide marking options. Until 2009, when fellow Stephenson Warry Hall of Fame inductee Satanta O'Halpin punched and kicked Cameron Cloke during an intra-club match at Princes Park in pre-season. He did score 39 goals in 13 games for the Northern Bull Ants that season, only playing 10 for the Blues, and he was delisted at the end of that season. He was given one last chance by Port Adelaide, where he was picked with pick 41 in the pre-season draft for 2010. He only managed one game and spent the most of the season in the SANFL with the Magpies, and his career in AFL came to an end. His local footy career, though, he did manage to win 2 Div 1 flags for Bundoora and the NFL's Best and Fairest in 2013. He won another flag at Jacana in the EDFL in Div 2. Sadly, though, his career was cut short this year because he was coward punched by the captain of Baronia Football Club while playing for Templestowe before the match, and had to retire due to horrible concussion symptoms. Baronia captain was only given an 8-week ban for this instead of, I'd argue, before the match. It probably should have been a life ban from playing local footy. But Cloke, I'd argue Cloke's a true journeyman. Especially including his local footy career. So please welcome him to the Stephenson Warry Hall of Fame.
That was a good induction.
I put work in there.
The best Cloke.
Have fun having no idea
I got
who
no
this
clue.
is, Connor.
I've seen it a few times. I'm just like, who is this bloke?
It's okay. Takeshita, our boy, he only appeared. Okay, so I believe he only appeared on Rampage this week.
No, he appeared on Dynamite and Rampage, but he did pretty much the same thing. He just showed up outside interference against the Elite, and that was it.
He just showed up, kicked ass, and then left.
He didn't kick ass on Dynamite, and he didn't do jack shit on Rampage, but he just showed up. because it's Takeshita. He needs to show up.
It's our boy, though. It's funny that I will say this. This is how unmemorable it was. I did forget he was on Dynamite. Completely forgot. I knew he was on Rampage, and I knew it was the same. It was the run-in, as we had sort of said. But yeah, not a big week for our boy. But damn, is he looking good in that leather jacket?
He is.
Damn, was it big, tall, and sexy?
It was everything.
Not too much to go on about this week. Just a couple of dirty blow-ins.
As long as he looks good in a leather jacket, though, that's all that matters, right?
That's all that matters with Takeshita. As long as he's looking good each week, and as long as he's on our TVs each week, and we're not asking where's Takeshita, we're happy. But that is Takeshita Watch. Well, boys, one sec before we keep going on. I'll cut off the Ashes talk. We'll do the outro, and then we'll keep going on with the Ashes talk. Everyone doesn't need to worry about our Ashes talk, but we are the AWO Journeyman. Welcoming in Jabs this week, our good mate Connor, the Essendon fan. So like, share, subscribe, follow us on Instagram, Spotify,
Thank you for having me, boys.
YouTube, and as usual, please drink more water.